Okay, hi, a frigid Tuesday night in Western New York. Mike Shope with Adam Krautwurst here on the deep end. You know, it's also very cold in the deep waters, so we're going for realism. We are daring tonight to be the one fantasy football podcast not to be throwing lineup advice at you for the FFPC Playoff Challenge. Don't worry, that'll be tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow night. It may be a little bit of that before we're done because we both are starving for it. But tonight we're going to meet Alex Kaganovsky, the co-founder of FFPC. He and the FFPC brought up this week, what do you want different in the future? And we're going to tackle some of those topics tonight. Also, we're going to meet last year's playoff challenge winner, Stephen Ranaghan. I'm sure some lineup stuff will come up with Stephen. So Alex, right after we bring in the Sharks, this is the deep end. Adam, those Sharks are going to do whatever they want. I mean, we don't bring them in. We don't cue them. They're Sharks.
That's what Sharks do. You know what I mean?
That is what Sharks do. Welcome, Alex Kaganovsky from the FFPC. Alex, Happy New Year. Thank you for all the fun the FFPC brings us. We met in September in Las Vegas, and this has been a great thrill for me this year, and I know for thousands of other players.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year. Hi, Adam.
Hey, how are you, Alex?
Yeah, it was nice meeting you, Mike. And Adam, it was good to see you for, the 13th year in a row or something like that?
Yeah, so something like that. Exactly.
Yeah. Is it really like that?
Oh, yeah. You know, I grew up in the high-stakes world, Mike. I don't know if you know that. I grew up swimming in the deep end, okay?
You kind of did. We've got important questions, but I want Alex to know my story. It's indulgent, but how I sort of connected with you guys, it's through Chris Lambert. Do you know that story, Alex? I might have told you in Las Vegas.
I think Chris may have told me a while back, but you can tell it again.
So this coming up is the 6th year in a row that a friend and I created a league that drafts the day before the Super Bowl for next year. We call it February Fix. You get your fix in February for the following season. It's bonkers because nobody knows anything. And so we had this idea, and we have one guy who owned a bar in South Buffalo, a relatively sort of not at all a business district. Okay. So we're on a Saturday, a winter Saturday, 1:00. There's 12 of us in this bar. No one else is in the bar. I hope he doesn't hear me. No one else is there. It's in a hotel. And 2 hours into the draft, Alex, no one else has walked in the bar. You know, it's like, okay, well, it's almost like a private party. We're drafting our team for the following season. This is maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4. Finally, someone walks in the door, and it's a man and a woman. And it turns out to be Chris Lambert and Lenny Papano. And they're in Buffalo to rescue a dog, I believe. That's the story. I think that's what it was. So I don't know who they are. Chris immediately asks, like you would expect, right? To be like, what's going on here? There's a big board, you know, and 12 guys. She knows right away, but it's a fantasy football draft. But the problem is it's February. So why would there be one? And we're in there doing this in this otherwise empty bar. She's like, let's meet. So we met Chris and Lenny. And next thing I knew, I was in Pros versus Joes. I was definitely a Joe, but they called me a pro, I guess, because of that.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, I remember she mentioned, I don't think she told that exact story, but she mentioned that, this is what happened. She kind of paraphrased your story. And, this guy, he's like super famous in Buffalo and the whole thing. I'm like, get him in. Let's go.
What a lucky break for me. So on that note, Adam, take it away. I know you've been sort of monitoring or even engaged in some of the Q&A that players are having with questions in mind for Alex.
Yeah, no, Alex, thanks again for coming on the show. And I know, we had talked in the past, and I know you've always wanted to kind of get an opportunity to maybe address some of the players out there, because I know a lot of the FFPC players listen to the pod, and we're all kind of part of a big community. And I know you guys tweeted out like a questionnaire, like, hey, what could we do better? What would we like to do better? And I know you'd like the opportunity to just kind of talk about the future in 2022. I know Mike and I are super stoked to start drafting again. So, so we just had some questions that came up, and And I think one of the big ones that I think got brought up the most was the payout structure for the football guys and the FFPC, and kind of if that's going to stay the same, or do you ever see it changing in the future? And I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that? Did you guys figure anything out for 2022? Are you going to stay the same, or what do you think?
Well, let me just address it kind of a little bit in a macro sense first and foremost. Prize structures from day one, from when Dave and I started building the prize structure in 2008 for the main event. At the time, it ended up being $75,000, and I think we had 180 teams in that main event, 2008. The prize structure is always, by far the most amount of time and thought that we put in. So this isn't stuff that we throw together, and year after year, obviously, it kind of grows and there's different discussions. And over the years, we've had every single discussion you could possibly have. So like all the questions, all the topics that come up on Twitter, all of those things have been discussed at one point or another, or many times over, or sometimes every single year it has been discussed. So I think it's important for everyone to realize that, this, and I get it. It's Twitter, and, I don't want to trash Twitter by any means, but, Twitter's for criticism. That's what people do on Twitter, and that's okay. But I just wanted everyone to know that it's, a lot of stuff that, it's not being dismissed. It's not being rejected, but a lot of this stuff has been discussed many, many times over. So just, just kind of as a macro, explanation for not just for price structure, but just for anything. We've been doing this for 13, 14. We live and sleep this stuff, Dave and I, and Chris, and now, our team has built out with new members. Mike and Eric has been with us for many years. We talk about this all the time. We talk to players. We talk to players, guys, behind the scenes through email and in person. So much you couldn't believe. So, the emails we get all the time involve discussions and, suggestions and, various things. And we're always going back and forth. So anyway, I don't want to bore you with that. That's kind of, I just wanted to preface like all my answers with that. Yep. And then, to get into a little bit more of a detail. So as far as the Football Guys Players Championship, the goal for 2022 is to increase the cap to 15,000 teams. So we have 13,200 teams. We sold it out as we have been for the last several years. So we're going to go to a $15,000 team cap. All additional prizes are going to be allocated to the championship round. The grand prize will stay at $500,000. That I know for certain. I can't really get into the specifics. I really don't. We haven't set second, third. But the goal is to flatten and deepen the prize structure this particular year. So the grand prize will stay the same, and we're going to just try to flatten and deepen it as much as you can. It's a year-to-year process. Those who've been with us for many years, you see us do that, every other year. Like we don't always just jack up the grand prize. Sometimes we're trying to do the best we can in other places, and that's what we're going to do this year. And wow. The goal is in 2023 or 2024 to eventually have a chance at the $1 million grand prize for the Football Guys.
While we're on the Football Guys, I think the question I've seen the most often in tandem with what you said you were doing in terms of deepening and flattening the prize pool is money for regular season winners. Is there a particular reason why you guys have avoided that, or is it just somehow how it fell?
So you're talking about the 1 and 2 seeds,
right? Similar to main event. Mm-hmm.
Again, back to what I said earlier, it's something that we talked about when we first built the contest back in the days with Joe and David from Football Guys, Joe Bryan and David Dodds. We were thinking about allocation, prize allocation. So prize allocation is always key. It's always trying to balance. It's how much can you allocate here? Is it meaningful? Is a certain prize meaningful? Is it not meaningful? If you put here, what are you going to do there? So it's that constant game. So from the beginning, we obviously, as you know, we never had the 1 and the 2 seed prizes. The reason being is because we wanted to hit the ground running with an impressive grand prize.
Right.
Yeah.
And the championship round in general, the championship round prizes. And once you kind of go down that path and you start to grow and grow and grow, you realize that, it's really difficult to pivot because you're talking about pretty much tearing everything down and rebuilding it again. And I'll tell you why, because the numbers are right there in front of you. If you just use you grab a calculator, it's easy. You take, let's say there's 1,000 leagues, and there's going to be more than that. There's going to be 1,250 leagues in 2022, right? If you allocate, let's say $700 in prizes, let's say you do $350 and $350 to the 1 and 2 seeds. You do the math, multiply 1,250 leagues by 700, you get $875,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not money we could just move around a little bit. That destroys the entire tournament. I mean, the tournament prize structure. I mean, now some people will say, "Well, I don't give a crap. Do it." And unfortunately, we have to make that decision. Like, we have to say to ourselves, you know what? We can't please everyone. We are not going to tear down what we've built so many years and gotten to the point that we are now. Years down the line, maybe it could happen, and maybe this thing continues to grow. Maybe instead of 50,000 teams, we're at 25,000 teams. Maybe we already have the $1 million grand prize. Maybe we could start to move some money around and allocate prizes to the 1 and 2 seeds. But the math is just not there right now.
Understandable.
Yes, it is. Do the math is the short answer to that question. Definitely is.
Yeah, but then if I said do the math, I would literally get run off Twitter tomorrow.
Well, listen, if you ever need help
Alex ignored us again.
If you ever need help at managing getting run off Twitter, I'm your guy. I can tell you all about it. So I'm happy to help. So you are up to $1 million in the main event. Adam noticed it. I don't know if Adam was the first to notice it, but one day we were on this show and he's like, "Did you see this? It just came out, $1 million for the main event." So how is that money going to work out when you look forward?
Well, listen, that's been our goal for several years now. We never imagined in a million years, no pun intended, when we first started this. But when we got to $500,000 grand prize several years ago, we're like, you know what? I think the goal is to get to $1 million, because once you get to that $1 million, then that's a nice number that you could kind of sit at and really build from there. Speaking of allocation, then you could think about what else you're going to do. How else do you grow the contest? Because that $1 million, it doesn't need to get to 1.5. It doesn't need to get to even 2. So what we realized last year, after having a very strong main event and selling out at 3,000 teams and looking at kind of the rate of entries and so on and so forth, is we are ready to make that big move. So we're going to go to a 4,200 team cap. We went from 3,000 last year to 4,200. That's a big move. We're going to have $1 million grand prize, but we also, realize that second and third places have to be respectable. So second place is going to be $200K. Third place is going to be $100K. So, for those that always ask for the flatter prices, maybe this is not exactly what they want, but it's not too shabby to have second and third place with 6 figures. The league prices are going to stay the same. But the entry fee will go up by $100. So whether it's the early bird or the regular price, it's going to go to $2,000 regular. Early bird will be $1,900. The multiple team discount. Now this is where it gets a little. I'll give you guys. This is the scoop. All right, you guys are getting the scoop. Ready?
Love it.
So, all right. So as you both recall, because you play the main event quite a bit, the multiple team discount is $1,500, right? So as many teams as you want to buy in addition to the first, you get $1,500. That's going to continue until the early bird deadline. After the early bird deadline, that's also going to go up by $100. So everything is going up by $100 after the early bird deadline, so to speak, right? Obviously, we'll clarify all of that, and you don't have to, those listening, you don't have to write it down and remember. We'll make sure to clarify that.
And what's that date, by the way?
Say again?
What's the date, or approximately?
The date of the early bird? That, I think that's always around the beginning of May, if I recall correctly, or is it the end of May? I'm sorry.
I think it might be the end of May, if I remember. I'm not.
Yeah. You know what? You're right, Adam. It used to coincide with the NFL draft, and I think we moved it a couple years ago. So you're right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you finally got to 1 million, because that's really what I've been waiting for to win this whole thing. Is
there you go.
For it to get to 1 million. $500,000 wasn't enough, so now I'm really gonna try to win this thing. But no, that's excellent to hear. That congratulations, by the way, getting to that number. That's a really cool number. Do you anticipate, as far as you're going to add more leagues? Do you anticipate drafting earlier? Do you anticipate more drafts in Vegas? Like, how do you think you're going to get to those numbers?
Yeah, so the slow drafts will launch July 4th, same as they did last year. I know that's a controversial thing. I know some people don't like it, and but we decided to keep it there, and I really don't foresee that necessarily moving anytime soon. The live online drafts will start August 12th, which may be, I think, several days or possibly a week earlier than we had them last year, but more or less in line. And the live draft schedule will not change. So, if you're used to, which I know so many of our players have their Vegas trip, planned out for years and years and years prior and years forward. So, that we're very mindful of that. We try to never really tweak the Vegas live draft schedule too much.
Love it.
Alex, so as to not keep you all night, is there anything, or are there things about the format, the game itself, that you guys are talking about or open to changing? I mean, as you're alluding to, and I saw this play out on Twitter when it was happening, you're getting a lot of different ideas, from the all play week to different things and bye weeks and whatnot. Are there one or two of these things you guys are thinking about? I mean, I'm new this year, or last year at least, in terms of football, guys, and I was trying to take on that challenge. I couldn't think of anything. Like I love the way the waivers work, but I'm relatively inexperienced. Is there anything you guys are that's on the table at this point?
So I don't know how much more time I have with you guys, but if I may, I have a little bit of a story to tell you about. It actually involves Lenny a little bit from way back in the day.
It's only fair. Only fair.
All right. So in 2002, as you know, Lenny Papano launched the World Championship of Fantasy Football, the original high-stakes season-long event. Actually, it's the original high-stakes any event. There was nothing else other than season-long. So I was one of the first people to literally sign up and register for the message board. There was no Twitter, there was no Facebook. Everyone's on message boards back then. And we started talking, the community built, and I mean, it was so exciting. Everyone was looking forward to this. And obviously conversations began about the format and this. I mean, the same, similar conversations that we're having right now. And I'll get kind of to the point. So there was a topic, and I actually don't remember the specific topic, but that's not important. There was a topic that we were debating on the message board. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is a slam dunk. It should be this way. And somebody, or maybe it was me, somebody suggested a poll. Lenny, in his wisdom, actually put a poll on the message board. That was also very common. Message boards had polls back then. It was like before the wheel, it was like message board. So he put a poll, and I'm like, okay, great, awesome. Lenny put a poll up. This is going to come in 95.5. And the only reason it's not going to be 100 is because 5 people are going to want to be, contrarian or just, buzz balls or whatever. And what do you think the result was? Well, the result was right around 50-50.
50-50, yep.
And why am I telling you this story? I remember, I will never forget that, because I was literally, I the next day when the poll, ended and they posted the results of the poll, I was like, how could that be? That's impossible. This is nuts. How do people? So what that taught me back then, and then several years later when I launched the FFPC, I never forgot it, is that everyone, no matter how much you think that everyone is going to have a different opinion about how the format should be, whether it's how the scoring should be, how the prizes should be. Everyone will have a different opinion. So you will never, ever satisfy everyone. The most you could do is do what you think is best, and hopefully people will accept it, respect it, and play the format. Hopefully you'll make a fun format. Why am I telling you the story? Basically because to me, a lot of the suggestions that are being made are a matter of preferences. So you have your preference. I have my preference. 1,000 other people may have 1,000 other preferences. I know from doing this for so many years and going way back to that poll in 2002, I know that I cannot satisfy everyone. So what we're going to do is, instead of chasing preferences, we're going to try to stay with what we feel is the best. It's kind of the current way. Don't break what's not broken. Don't fix what doesn't need fixing. If something needs to be tweaked, we're happy to think about it. But unless something is broken, it is not on our radar to fix it. That's our general approach.
So what I hear, Alex, is team kicker for 2022. Is that what I hear?
No. Speaking of team
I like
kicker,
it.
so I'll tell you something. I'll tell you, Dave and I, and this is like personal. Like I don't take things too personally. I hate Dave and I. We both hate team kicker with a passion.
Wow.
So just from that perspective, it would be very difficult for us to get behind team kicker if we don't ourselves believe it.
Sure.
Right. We're very passionate about the game, the FFPC, everything we put out. So we have to believe in it. We got to the no kicker, the slims format, the best ball slims format, because that wasn't that's a removal of the position. But the team kicker position, I just really, really dislike, because I believe it kills the draft. Well, at least that part of the draft. I think that the strategy of the kicker, when to draft the kicker, do you draft them 2-3 rounds earlier, Tucker, whoever? And then, believe it or not, there are a lot of players out there, and players who I've known for 20 years, who not only like kickers, they believe they could handicap kickers. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But they believe they have an advantage with their kicker strategies, and they want to keep the kicker.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I respect you guys sticking to your beliefs, and you guys have, if people want Superflex, you guys offer some satellite Superflex leagues. If people want no kicker, you offer the slims format. So there's it's not like you're not, changing anything, you're not listening to anything. You guys have been creating different leagues and different formats, and that I totally get it.
Well, everything. So I'm sorry, Mike, but the thing is, everything you see, we love everything we've done on the FFPC platform in terms of additional features. Like, for example, for the playoff challenge, I don't know if you guys saw the new page with the multiple team. All of that. Yeah, thank you. All of that comes from our players giving us suggestions. Please add this. Please add that. We'll do that forever. We will dedicate ourselves and our tech team 24/7 to making those changes. We will never say no to anything that makes sense. But in terms of structure, a different structure in terms of the game, that's where we're very careful. We are traditionalists. We like to stick to what's not broken, and that's not going to please everyone. I get it.
I have an overall positive feeling about tonight, but once you said kicker strategy, I knew I was on team FFPC. I love the kicker thing. I think that's a great thing. I don't want team kicker. I want to pick when I want, who I want. That's what I want. So now you know that. Adam, do you have any Lenny stories? You know him? I mean, we both offered Lenny stories tonight. Maybe you should offer one if you have one.
I'm going to plead the fifth on all my Lenny stories.
Okay. Probably good. We'll save it for the drive to Canton next year.
Yes.
Very good. Alex, I mean, a pleasure. Thank you for your time tonight. I think a lot of FFPC players are glad to hear from you. And I certainly respect really everything you said. So good job. And we'll see you in Vegas, if not sooner.
I appreciate it. And I'm happy to, come on anytime to address any controversial issues. And if you want to have, a left and a right, like a debate, I'm happy to have it too.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Thanks so much, Alex, for coming on. I know you've never, you always speak your mind, which is great. And you're always forthcoming. And I know that meeting everybody in Vegas and you getting out there and being able to kind of meet everybody is really cool and a great opportunity for us and for you. So thank you again so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
all right.
Alex. Good job.
Thanks,
all
Alex.
Right. Alex Kaganovsky. Do I want to, I don't know, I have a Baylor shirt on. I'm a little bit cold. It's the basement. It's winter. That is not a live shot. That's a view of my yard or from the front yard. And I love that, but I'm so cold, Adam. I mean, look at you, the hoodie and the hat, like it's a very cold night. We're looking at a Bills playoff game where it's going to be like 0. So I needed a little sunshine and Riverview tonight.
Yeah, no, it's freezing outside. I mean, what a great convo though. I mean, such good information. Great to talk to Alex, and I'd love to have him on, maybe even like quarterly just to discuss, because stuff comes up every year and they do a good job about answering those questions. And it's good to kind of communicate with everybody and let them know sometimes why. And sometimes it's stuff that you can't talk about, like whatever, like but it's good to know that some of the FFPC customers are being heard and, they might not get the answer they want, but whatever, at the very least, it's great that the FFPC can reach out and answer some of those questions.
I would tell you honestly, like I want to disagree with some of the points, like the fundamental points about the format or whatever, but I think I saw the question about FFPC, the FBG payouts more than anything else. And he's like, all right, well, tell me how to do it, basically. And I think he's probably right there. I would tell him, if I knew him personally, I would tell him, you know what, you're in the chair. You don't have to worry so much about, how people are receiving FFPC or whatever like that. Because obviously, when it comes to Twitter or whatever, he wants everybody to know that we are listening and we do think about these things. That's the point. But I would want to assume that because, I mean, there's a lot of money in it and a lot of people who care very deeply.
Sure.
So I think tonight was a good night for him.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks again to Alex Kaganovsky for coming on. We did share some stories and clear up some issues, hopefully. Let's talk next to a man who has gotten checks from Alex. This is Stephen Ranaghan, who has won the FFPC Playoff Challenge. Stephen has been, I think, hanging out with us throughout. And thank you for doing that, Stephen, and for your time tonight.
Great. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So the obvious question is, how did you do it? I mean, last year had to be just an amazing result and experience for you. Tell us about how you remember it, if you would.
Yeah. It was just a really, it was a great time. Just, kind of going through that. I've played that contest, probably for about 10 years. I don't think I really played it when I started, but probably over the past, 6 to 10 years or so, and some more than others. But I really love the format. I think it's, I think I've said this before. I think its simplicity makes it really attractive to all kinds of players, right? It's not, it's not like you have to be playing tons of teams every year, or it's not like you have to know the league inside and out with injuries and rosters and all that. I think you can do pretty well if you have just a pretty good understanding of kind of the way the year is going and the way the league's going and, and such. So I think it's structured great. I mean, they're an awesome company. I mean, I've been on different places talking about them, and they just do an amazing job with customer service and really go out of their way, I think, to help their customers. And, the website is great. I heard Alex saying he takes a lot of feedback from, his customers, and it shows because, I'm not a high volume player, but I'll play multiple teams. And, the website is a great, it's a great vehicle to, get things done in a manner that you need to, in a fast way, and and also effective, right? So that part I love. I mean, I think they're the best at that. I've seen some of the layouts of some of the other sites, and that to me is important, and just the look and feel, everything, the site, whoever they hired to develop that did a great job.
So Stephen, what so I know you won it all last year, 500K. What was kind of the key to your success last year? How many entries did you put into this tournament? Do you think that's optimal? Are you doing more this year? So how did last year work for you?
Yeah, I probably put in, I think, about like 15 maybe. Usually I'll do a little less than that, but I think I had a like a pretty good, decent end to the year last year. So I sort of judged it that way. I sort of just go kind of on gut and feel for, how many I'm going to play. And that actually brings up a good question, is really like about ROI and like how many entries do you really want to play, with the amount of people and what the payout is, right? Like, I'm a big believer. I'm always searching for the optimal amount of teams to play in a contest, because, if you're going to play 100, right, that's not very effective, right? And, if you're on, a lot of the same players, and that's really not going to work, right? But if you play 2, right, that may not work, right? You may not even get to pick the players you want, because, you'll be in a draft and they'll get picked, during that draft. You won't have a chance to get them. So, yeah, I played like 15 or 20. And I tried to structure it around, kind of the quarterbacks that I liked, right? And I liked, unfortunately, I liked Lamar last year, and Brady also. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I started. I kind of started with that kind of, okay, who do I like, as quarterbacks to, who could win the Super Bowl, basically, kind of in my eyes. And that's kind of the way I started. I think I had Brady, Kamara, and Chubb as my running backs. Kelsey, the Washington defense, Matt Gay, and then I had 6 wide receivers. I had AJ Brown, Marquise Brown, Claypool, Metcalf, Devontae Adams, and Diggs. So I had a lot of receivers, and I think, like that's kind of, how I characterize. I thought a lot of the teams in the playoffs were, like a little bit pass happy kind of. So that's kind of how I structured that. And I know I kind of thought like AJ Brown was coming on last year, pretty heavy last year from what I had seen. So, I was kind of like moving away from Henry and stuff like that. So it's, people always ask me strategy. It's really kind of a piecemeal thing, right? You got to look at it from like basically every team's perspective, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wonder how you remember the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game on the Sunday night. So you seem to be a Baltimore fan. The Ravens win that afternoon in Tennessee. And then there's the Nickelodeon game with the Saints that really no one cared about too much. And then you have Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and we're in Buffalo, right? So it's the Steelers unless Cleveland wins. And you are or I'm not sure if you're in Baltimore, but with the Ravens, it would be Buffalo if the Browns win. Like, so we're sort of watching the game as fans, if I have you somewhat right, kind of the same way. And then you get that game. So you get the result as the fan, which is going to be Ravens Bills. But what I'm more interested in is how Chubb and Claypool, I mean, they went a long way to win you this tournament, it would seem, because I mean, even with Kareem Hunt scoring 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of that Pittsburgh game. Anyway, I don't say anything more. Like, how do you remember that night?
No, that's a great point. I'm not from Baltimore. I'm from Boston, actually, I just love the Ravens. Don't ask me why. Yeah, it's really funny you say that, because I think that was a key game, the Pittsburgh game, in determining this, because I really like Chubb, and I think Chubb, kind of went nuts there in the second half, right? And it was interesting because I thought to myself during that game, I was like, and I've said this before, I think, where, I saw Juju Smith-Schuster going off, and I really liked him. Like, he was kind of one of my favorite plays last year in this contest. And I sort of backed off it a little bit. Like, I kind of picked him a little bit, and it was so interesting because in that game, Claypool hadn't really done anything, and they were in garbage time. And I think if memory serves me correct, I think he got 2 touchdowns in the second half. He may have got one in the first half, but I know he got one late. And I thought, wow, that like totally bails you out, because it got him a little closer to Juju. So I really loved Claypool last year, and I didn't really have him, in that many things. So I sort of thought, I think he's ready to do something. And, it really was, for the most part, I think garbage time with him, really, because they were down so much in the game. So it's very observant of you. That I always look back on that game as like a huge piece of it.
Well, yeah, I feel those are called instincts, Stephen. What you were feeling, and
on this show they are.
You had the right instincts. But yeah, Chubb was certainly a huge part of your puzzle, to get that 500K, because I know I certainly wasn't counting on. I don't remember exactly all my lineups last year, but I certainly wasn't. Didn't have a lot of Chubb, if any. Thinking that they would go beat Pittsburgh. Kind of fast forward to this year. I don't know if you've started building your lineups yet or what, but do you have a Nick Chubb guy this year that maybe is an underdog running back on a team that should lose? Do you see somebody like that in this year's competition?
I can see somebody like a Josh Jacobs, maybe, something like that. That's kind of,
Absolutely.
And, I'm not a huge Jacobs fan, but it's I could see him kind of being one. I haven't started building any lineups. The only reason why, I thought I would bring this up, where I think it's a huge thing. I mean, COVID's a huge thing in this, right? I mean, in the regular season, I had teams that were going great, like especially at FFPC. I had a lot of really good teams, and COVID just like killed them all at the end there. I had a couple of teams with one quarterback injured, and then the other one got COVID, and I'd actually backed them up, and I'd actually thought about taking 3 quarterbacks for a while, and I'm like, oh, you can't do that. That's not really that optimal to do that, right? And it turns out that probably would have helped me. I don't think it would have made any difference, but COVID's a big thing, right? I mean, how much do you decide if you want to play, right? So, to your point again, I haven't started putting anything together. I've been sort of, more just thinking about it a little bit. But COVID, that's going to play a huge piece in it. I think the only nice thing about it is that at least before you set your lineups, you'll have an idea of the people that have it before the first round, so that's a little bit of a saving grace, I think, right? Because, you're going to know. Problem is later down in those roads, down in those rounds, and you're hoping, that the team has the wherewithal to kind of like, kind of get the team sort of, into like a, like a quarantine, kind of a mini quarantine type of thing, hopefully. So that was one of the things. And the other thing I had heard recently that I think is a big thing, and, you talked about running backs, was, what about the guys that have been hurt that people really aren't going to focus on? Like, I mean, one's kind of obvious, but Henry, right? So Henry's one, right? And then you got guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? I mean, you just, who knows, right? Really, you don't know, if he plays, how much will he play? He's got, a couple of those running backs there now. So I think there's even more wrinkles into it this year, which is, I think it's kind of fun. I think the more variables you throw in, it's better. I think there's probably been some years where there's 10 teams and it's like the obvious 10 guys, that you would take, and there's maybe 2, right, that are, there's a variance. I mean, I remember 2 years ago I finished 4th in this contest, and I remember Eric talking on one of his shows, and he was saying how a lot of the folks he had talked to had said, that there's like a pivot team that's pivotal, no pun intended, to really making a difference in the contest. And that year was the 49ers. And I remember him saying that he had heard a lot of people talking about that. And, because there were so many, there was like multiple running backs there. There was, multiple offensive weapons and things like that. So, I had Mostert. Luckily, I loved him that year. I unfortunately didn't have enough. I didn't, I had taken, one player I think that wasn't very great on one of the really good teams that year. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, if you can find those teams where it's, the pivotal player like that, I know that really doesn't signify too much, but I think that's I think that's an important factor.
I think the one thing it does signify is that you have to really be willing, maybe even to be a little bit uncomfortable with who you choose. I mean, either the team isn't expected to win, or it was Tevin Coleman in San Francisco that I had that year, but it was Mostert, maybe 4 touchdowns, the NFC Championship, who smashed. So You have to be, if you have enough teams, you can sort of let it fall the way it does, but be a little bit uncomfortable there. Wow, Stephen, two things are sort of awesome to me. One, a Lamar Jackson fan in Boston. Adam knows I'm a Lamar Jackson fan in Buffalo, so I feel like we're sort of connected in that way.
There you go.
Two is you were fourth then and first. I mean, top 10 this year should mean Kimmel. You're doing our show. You're going to do Eric's tomorrow. I think I saw him tweet. I mean, Kimmel is next.
That's right.
Well, people talk to me about it, and I say, I don't think I'm even that good. I honestly don't. And I'm just like, some people tell me, oh, no, you're this, you're that. And I'm just like, it's, again, I think it's just more, I think some formats, I'll play some contests, and I finished like every team out of 4 teams in there over 2,000, like, 2,100, 22. And I'm just like, man, what am I doing? What was I thinking? But I really do. I think it's what's amazing about this industry is there's so many different formats out there. I think this is a key thing. And if you can find a format that you like, at least if you lose, you can have fun, but that you have a feel for it, right? And that, you could also get bad results and still have a good feel for it. It's but I think that's a part of it. I've gotten better at that over time. When I know I'm just not good at something, I'm just like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm not doing that anymore. So, and yes, I am a Lamar Jackson fan. I really think he helped me win one of my titles 2 years ago. So I have or was it 2? Yeah, 2 years ago. So I think he's great, but he's kind of regressed a little bit. So I'm a little concerned. We'll see how it goes.
They need a new offensive coordinator who knows how to develop a passing game, in my opinion. I mean, enough of this. By the way, I want you to know, I had a main event team that just missed the money with 3 quarterbacks on it, and none of them played week 17.
Oh, so okay. So I wasn't the only one. All right.
No, I mean, I went to 3, which, like, as you said, maybe not optimal. Cousins, Garoppolo, Fields.
Wow.
Gotta go to 4. Come on.
0. We lost by 5 points. We lost the money by 5 points with 0.
Gross.
Well, see, and that's what I mean about this year. I was so tough is like, maybe you'll see it next year. But I mean, to me, that just, you sign up for what you sign up for, but it was just, it's like disheartening kind of, like it's just like,
too much
because you work at it, and build up that team and, maybe you're not going to win it. Maybe you're not going to finish top 5 or something, but you built the team, you made good picks, and you're just, and then that happens and right away, it's done. You're done. You have no chance. So that's unfortunate.
Stephen,
to hear that.
One last question for me. Do you, and you might not even know the answer to this, but do you focus more when you're building these playoff lineups? I find it can be so, you've got multiple lineups and you're really trying to figure out, you want the most optimal way of doing them all together in a portfolio sense. And do you find yourself focusing more on players, like what the player's going to do? Or do you find yourself more along the lines of, hey, let's just figure out what teams are going to get through, and then we'll throw a dart at the players because I can't tell you what a player is going to do this week, let alone 3 weeks from now. So we don't know weather, we don't know COVID. So do you find yourself more on the long lines of, hey, let's figure out what teams are going to get through, or is it a combination of both? What do you think?
I think it's a little combination of both. I think your core, you kind of focus on like, okay, what teams are going to go far, right? That's kind of the way you look at it. You look at your shell like that. But the key is, I think, on those, I think Eric talked about this on one of the serious shows, is like, you have those other teams that, you may have your 2 throwaway teams, but those other teams, like a lot of those teams that don't look great, they have like a pretty diverse offensive tree, right? Like a lot of the, you look at like the Raiders or whoever, or the Eagles, or even the Niners. Some people like the Niners, and so you have a lot of options there, right? So that's really the key, I think. If you can, and I go by gut feel a lot on stuff like that. Like if I see a team like that, like for instance, the Patriots are in there, right? I don't know. Are they going to go too far? I don't know. Probably not. They don't look very good, but like I like some of their receivers a lot. And most people outside of New England wouldn't look at them and think, yeah, I like those receivers, right? So, there's a couple of them. Like I love Myers, right? So I don't know, would I take him? Maybe not, but if I was sort of feeling like, hey, like, yeah, maybe he could have a good game. Or Kendrick Bourne can blow up, like he's got that capability. He's not a superstar. He's got great advanced stats, can do everything. You got guys like, like I was thinking there's a ton of good tight ends in this playoffs, right? Probably more than I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, along with COVID, a couple of those running back, is that tight end thing, because you could bring in a really crazy strategy if you wanted to, right? I mean, you could, who knows? You could have 4 tight ends in the final 4, right?
5. Mike says 5.
No,
Yeah,
Stephen,
right?
I'm right with you. I'm so right with you, Adam. Like, come on, Kelsey, Gronk is easy. Schultz is defensible. Waller,
Yep.
Ertz, and that's not even the whole list.
Yeah,
Kittle.
Yeah, the first. I'm going to chat with Mike, and I like to go in and just do one lineup, just initial gut feeling. Ding, ding, ding. I rolled through. I took a picture of it. It was 4 starting tight ends in this roster. So definitely deep.
Yeah, and I don't think that happens a lot in this contest, but I could see it's going to happen eventually, right? It really is. I mean, or it's going to get close, right? So,
you said the thing earlier about how, like, running backs, maybe there were years where 10 guys was easy. And what you have in running back this year is, like, look at the NFC. How many teams out of 7 is it sort of even known at all that one running back is going to get 70% of the touches? It's San Francisco, maybe, which is sort of ironic because everybody's thinking everybody's valuable in San Francisco. And there's Fournette. But everybody else is Dillon or Jones, right? Like, it's just, you go on. Arizona is a question mark. Dallas is a question mark. So running back is a little bit pretty far out there this year.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that, okay, everyone's not going to have running backs. I'm going to have a ton of them now. You know what I mean? It's just, there's so many things you can do, right?
Right. Right. Good point.
It's, maybe, if there's a team you really like, and you just, maybe I like Mac Jones. I won't have that, but I'm just kidding. But, who knows, right? The Pats could go on a defensive run. I don't think so. But, stuff like that, you could have a quarterback like that along with like a chalk lineup with it or something. But it's just cool. So I think it's better than the regular season myself. But I get so pumped up to do this contest, and I'm sure COVID will ruin it, but I think it's great. And again, I think it's the simplicity of it. I think some of the other leagues make it a little too complex, like that you can't even almost figure it out. People say, "Oh, well, that's what makes it great." And it's like, I don't even think the people who created it knew that they were trying to make it that tough. But I just think it's great. It just makes it it's simplistic. One player team, and the company's awesome. I won the contest last year. They called me during the game. No other company's done that. I have respect for other, the other companies in the industry too, but nobody did that. Nobody called me during the game to say, "Hey man, congratulations, you did a great job." They're a quality company. I really mean that. You don't find that a lot, nowadays in a lot of industries, good companies. But they do it. They're good.
No doubt about that.
Stephen, great job. You slipped in earlier. I don't even know if I'm a great player. I'm going to tell everybody I think you are. I really felt like a lot of things you said tonight were super smart. And, good luck with Eric tomorrow. He's tough.
I know. I have to remember not to make fun of the Packers. I didn't mean to make fun of them last year, and he got upset at me. So
you can do it. You can totally do it.
All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And, here's hoping you finish second this year. I mean, that would be awesome, right? 4-1-2.
Right. Mike 1, Adam 2, me 3. All right. You got it.
Even third wouldn't be so
okay with that too.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep.
Thanks very much for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, I love it.
Super good.
Super good.
Baxter.
Baxter, our buddy Baxter, talking about go Bills. Let's go. I keep hearing, and I feel like
from the bare knuckle, by the way, from the bare knuckle.
That's right.
The mean streets of the bare knuckle.
He lives in the mean streets of LA over to the mean streets of the bare knuckle. And we'll talk more about matchups and stuff tomorrow, but I've just heard multiple people talking about the Bills, and I don't know, maybe I'm the guy that I think New England has a real shot. You hear people outside of I always like to get the outside of Buffalo, outside of my heart view, and a lot of people really don't give him a chance. Vegas gives New England a chance, and that Jacoby Myers point was really, really great, because a lot of people are like, hey, if the Patriots win, it's Damian Harris. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Jacoby Myers, and maybe that's how you get a little bit different, but we'll see.
Yeah, that would be a baller's play. Jacoby Myers. We're going to talk tomorrow night with Matt Schauf and Jared Smola on the Draft Sharks podcast and strategize. And I had typed out a text today about Zay Jones, but then I erased it. I wouldn't want anybody to know. I mean, there's no touchdowns. Zay Jones. So there are lots of recent targets, but he has one touchdown all season, and it was in the opener. And, like Renfro has sort of calmed down a little bit. And what is Waller? Okay, well, who else is there? And I thought of him, and I texted. I'm typing it out to you and Matt and Jared, and you know what? No touchdown equity, but you know what? Maybe two this week.
That's the play, right?
Stephen plays, and we'll talk to him next year.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we'll see. He made a lot of great points. I hope everybody enjoyed tonight. Alex answered a lot of questions even gave a couple new things away about next year in the main event. Do you want to comment on any of that? I mean, that's from earlier, but the main event, the prices to play, the prize structure. Yeah. I thought he answered the FBG payout question for good, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. So I totally respect his stance on everything, and I'll obviously continue to support them, and they are the best around. If I had my choice, I would prefer some football guys payouts for the regular season. I do think that might. I mean, we'll see. I hope it doesn't hurt the competition, but I think there was a lot of people that really got banged up bad by COVID this year that didn't make anything from their regular season, and then COVID killed them in the postseason. And hopefully, people come back. We'll see. As far as the big high volume guys. So I get that he wants to get that prize pool to $1 million, which is really, really cool. Team kicker and stuff, all that little small stuff, that I obviously prefer team kicker. And not even from a competitive, just literally for COVID. So I don't have to carry two kickers, because the difference between 500,000 or now $1 million and whatever he said, 300,000 for second or whatever could be a point, which could be not having a kicker because of COVID or whatever. So, but no, I totally get all the points. I'm one of those guys who doesn't love that there's, and Alex and I have actually talked about this before. I'm not a big July 4th slow draft main event guy. I do them because I feel like I need to, because other people are getting exposure during those times. But I'm an old school, let's do it all the last week of the year. But I get it. It's a business. You want to make it grow. You can't get $1 million prize pool with drafts for 1 week of the year. So I totally get it, and I love it, and I'll be a part of all of it. So I'm excited.
Yes. Fundamentally about the FBG, what he got to was the big payout and not the league payouts is what that tournament is about, going back to its roots.
Yeah.
And so he's saying, if I can sort of try to interpret it, this is what I was thinking listening to him, that's what that tournament is meant for. It's not the main event. It's not a league where you can go in and double your money before the sprint. And it's great that there's both.
Right.
So you have the FBG where you can put in, if you're somebody who can afford numerous main event teams, several main event teams, you can pound the FBG. A lot of the same people do.
Yeah.
And you just know, and the terms are already laid out anyway. You can choose to play in it or not.
That's right.
That tournament is about the money at the far end, which is, of course, great. And there's a lot of luck in it in terms of COVID and kicker points. I mean, there's so much luck in fantasy anyway. I embrace it. I love kickers in leagues. I love defenses in leagues because people should sort of reflect on how much luck there is in the rest of it. The late touchdown, talking about Claypool last year or whoever. Like every big tournament is won. The FBG this year was won on that Najee Harris touchdown run
by a team with one entry.
One entry.
What?
I had the two main event teams with Louis G. One lost because our three quarterbacks were all zero. The other one lost on that play. So, but you need to be in my, with due respect, personal opinion, you want to be in a place in your life where you can lose in these ways and, just sort of look around.
Yeah.
And you're only really playing at this level because you can afford to do it. Your life is good and you have the kind of freedom and sort of even the wealth. Like it costs a lot of money to play in this stuff, to be able to do this stuff. And if you get beat, it can be stupid sometimes. We all know that. We've all had stupid beats in fantasy football.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to be Stuart Smalley. Didn't Stuart Smalley have like clouds behind him and everything like that? Did he have gray hair and glasses? I feel like I'm getting sort of a bad vibe now. I'm not trying to preach. I just here we have mobile betting in New York State as of Saturday.
I heard you talking about that on the radio today. I could feel your energy. I got the same energy, but you got to be careful with it. Just like you said.
Holy cow, the live betting. You can bet on any game at any time on your phone. Holy cow, it's just crazy.
Mike, when the Bills were only up 3 on Sunday against the Jets, I put 20 on the Jets money line. I said, let me get a nice little like $250 if the Bills end up blowing this thing.
Wow. I was betting Jacksonville early against Indianapolis and what do I want to do here? Do I want to hedge and win $8? No. Yeah. Jacksonville was my decision. Let's go. So that worked out because the line took a long time to move over to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But you really have to be careful because it's a lot of excitement and it's very addicting. I mean, these live bets, and plus you can cash out. It's very easy. It seems already to me apparent to make a $40 bet. And then in 5 minutes, you're like, I can cash out for 33. I'll take it. I'll take the 33. And just like, it's $7. But every one of those is a win for the house.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So you got to make sure you can handle it. That's financially, that's emotionally, that's all of this. That's this thing, that's gambling. We're not too disparate of creatures, fantasy and all that. So
absolutely.
Okay. So tomorrow what are you gonna wear? What are you gonna wear tomorrow?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm gonna wear a jersey of some sort. I'll wear a jersey. I'll surprise you.
Me too. Red Sox?
No, it'll be football. Although Steven's probably a Red Sox fan. Hopefully he's not an Orioles fan. You know what I mean? Like, let's go Red Sox.
I liked that. I got my guy. I will wear a jersey tomorrow too, but no football jersey fits me. I'll figure something out. But let's do it. If you can get Matt and Jared, that's a home run. It's a grand slam if you can get those guys.
For sure.
Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed Alex Kaganovsky and Stephen Ranaghan.
Yes.
Rannigan. I'm sorry, Stephen Ranaghan for being on with us tonight. I had to shrink the screen so I could see the name one more time. I panicked in the moment. Sorry, Stephen. Stephen Ranaghan, last year's $500,000 winner. A lot of good advice and thoughts on last year. Alex Kaganovsky, of course, from the FFPC. Mike Shope here with Adam Krautwurst. We will see you tomorrow night with Matt and Jared on the Draft Sharks Playoff Challenge podcast. That'll launch at 9 Eastern. So we'll be on live talking about lineup strategy, team by team tomorrow night. That'll start at 9. Thanks for watching. Leave any comments you want at DeepEndFF1, and we will see you tomorrow.
See you guys.